Thank you all, and thank you Malcolm for inviting me to this event. When I saw the conference theme of making great places, couldn't really resist coming along and talking about the Inverness Campus project. Being involved in it, actually, the inception was round about 2006, and it was an idea that is now coming to fruition. And the whole drive behind it is to create a great place for academe, for students, business community and the wider community. So hopefully this will play into the themes of the conference. I've been project director for the project for full time since 2010, but I was involved in the early days 2006 when the project was first thought of. The project is called Inverness Campus. It extends to some 215 acres to the east side of Inverness, and I'll show you some images later on that puts it in context. And the way I'm going to deliver the next kind of half hour or so, it's in three themes really. It's what was the opportunity that was presented to us going back 6 or 7 years ago. It's the challenges that we faced both then and now in terms of taking it through, and I'm going to focus at the end on delivery, where we are at the moment and where we hope to be in the next 5 to God knows how many years. The opportunity, as is often the case, actually came about as it was really a difficulty that the region has faced for several hundred years. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Highlands, and I assume most of you are, but the Highlands in terms of its population and its economy has been in decline since probably the 1745, 1746. Prior to that, actually, and prior to the Renaissance, the Highlands was actually quite a well-performing culture and economy in relative terms. After the issue of the 1745, things got a bit difficult. Poverty was everywhere. Economic opportunity certainly didn't exist in the Highlands, and people left, and they left in their droves. So for 150, 160 years, we suffered massive depopulation and certainly economic decline. For a number of policy reasons, UK reasons of conscience, that changed probably around the 1950s, 1960s. And if you look at the demographics, the population in the Highlands has been growing since then. In some pockets initially around about the Moray Firth area, but now very healthily across the whole of the Highlands and Islands, with one or two small exceptions which we're working on. If you look at regional economies across the planet, the healthy economies have a university at the core, and the ones that aren't doing well don't have a university. So there's definitely a very strong link between a university and the health of a region, the health of a country. And the UK is a cracking example of that. We've punched above our weight, both in economic terms over the years and in academic terms. So a key policy issue for HIE and our stakeholder partners was to create a University of the Highlands and Islands, and it's been an aspiration for over 100 years, but in the last 20 years the University of the Highlands and Islands project came about, and 2 years ago the university was awarded full university status. So we now have a university after 100 years of effort, and the trick now is how do we make it into a really good university, in fact probably the best in its class for a rural university. And the local academic partner we have here, I won't spend time on the university in too much detail because you could present about an hour on that, but the local academic partner of 13 academic partners is Inverness College, UHI. The biggest academic partner in our region, although there's a bigger one in Perth, but the real estate was tired beyond belief, and in fact it was a tail end Charlie if you look at the fabric of the university across the region. So the opportunity for us was to create a new campus, a new university campus from scratch. Blank sheet of paper, how do we go about doing it? And it was a fantastic opportunity for us, and it presented itself around about 2006, 2007. So we thought, how do you go about creating a new university campus from scratch? We'll start with a vision, and that is what we embarked on. That's just a wee example of what the real estate is like. So for those of you again that aren't familiar with it, the Inverness College is split across 3 campuses around the town. 2 of them, the 2 main ones, Longman, you can see from the photograph, that's one of the more flattering ones. It's actually worse than that. It was tired 20 years ago, it's completely knackered now. And the one down here was an old Victorian building, which is a charming building. It's a beautiful building, but it's not fit for purpose. The rooms are too big. It's not kind to modern telecommunications. Very inefficient in terms of space utilage, and it's very expensive to run. So the vision partners, in 2006-2007, we got together some stakeholder partners. The original partners were my own organisation, Highlands Enterprise, which is the development agency for the north half of Scotland, University of the Highlands and Islands, the Highland Council and NHS Highland. And basically NHS Highland, which sounds like perhaps a curious partner, but in terms of the bit of land that we identified, they were adjacent to that, and in terms of the intellectual capacity of that organisation, it's massive, and certainly massive in a local context. So these organisations, hosted by UHI, spent a day locked up in a room and kind of brainstormed what would a vision for a new campus look like. Then over the following subsequent months and indeed years, we acquired some new stakeholders, including other universities, University of Stirling, SRUC, which used to be the Scottish Agricultural College, Scottish Funding Council, which is a strategic partner. Some of the partners have got project-specific reasons for being on side, and other ones are more strategic. But very importantly, the Scottish Government, and in 2010 the Cabinet Secretary John Swinney agreed to come on and chair our partnership forum, and that blended considerable political clout, but also momentum, and in terms of knocking down doors, etc., opening doors for us, very important indeed. So we've got a broad range of partners, created a vision and moved on from there. The output from that day session was a 2 or 3 page document, and it was quite interesting because I've been to a few of these things, and some of them you come out wondering why you bothered in the first place. You get these wise words, and if you look at them in isolation, things like a place, the functionality we had, a place to live, well, what the heck does that mean? A vibrant place, what does that mean? You put them all together, we broke it down into functionality. This place, wherever it's going to be, is going to be a place for learning, a place to connect and collaborate, create knowledge, undertake research, deliver services, which was quite important. It had to be relevant to people using the site. From our point of view, create businesses and create enterprise, and a place for people to live, particularly students, but not restricted to students. In terms of the ambience, inspiring, vibrant, stimulating, safe, open and welcoming. Again, wise words, but if you think in your mind's eye, how do you create a place like that? It certainly makes you think, and it's quite challenging. And in terms of the physical environment, these are the key things that came out of that session. And as we've moved forward through the project, I always go back to this as being the blueprint. When we get inquiries or have ideas or approached about activities, if you're confused at all by it, or if I'm confused at all by it, go back to the rigging and say, does it fit that? If it fits that, it's in. If it doesn't fit that, it's not getting in. The site itself, again, some of you will be familiar, but probably most of you won't. This is the main railway that many of you come in today, coming into Inverness. This is the main city of Inverness here, and here's the A9 north from Perth right through up to Wick. Well connected in some respects, but these are barriers too, in planning terms. How do we connect across that way, and how do we connect over the A9? This is a computer-generated image of what we hope will be achieved over 20 years, and we've started on the north end of the site there, which is about 89 acres, and we've got planning consent for 55,000 square metres of development on that site, and this is aspirational. At some future point we'll be looking to get another master plan developed on that one. But connectivity and relevance to the city centre was key to us, and as Inverness has grown probably year on year for 20 plus years, and we do envisage that continuing over the next 20 odd years, and the signs are good for that. And as it grows, it will grow in this direction over to the east, and therefore at the moment we're probably slightly to the edge of the city, but over the next 10-20 years we'll be more central to the city. And as I've done my research and work on this, it became apparent that universities are amongst the longest standing institutions on the planet, other than churches. So after churches and religion, you've got universities, some of which are 1,000 plus years old. So it's been interesting, because I'm trying to take a 1,000-year view on this, which possibly won't be around for all of it. But So moving from the vision, how do you get a vision and encapsulate it and deliver it? We took on an organisation called MAKE, who are pretty famous architects, and we were delighted to procure their services, delighted they showed interest. Unfortunately, economic crisis came upon us, and partway through the process, MAKE entrenched and went back to London, and the Edinburgh office was closing. So spinning out of the Edinburgh office was a company called 7N, and we stayed with the 3 or 4 partners that we were dealing with. And 7N since then have been our master planners and advisors. We undertook comparator trips, and talking about pinching ideas earlier on, we've pinched a lot of ideas, particularly from Scandinavia. Went to southern and northern Sweden, Finland, Norway, Iceland, so various members of the team have been to various places, looking to see what's worked in a kind of rural context, an urban context, what ideas can we glean and learn from them. A trip to US and indeed Canada, and a very good exemplar that we saw in Rotterdam as well. So we did our homework, and then at the end of all that, got the grouping in together again. It was a wider grouping by now. Had a 2-day very hands-on workshop in Nairn, which was really interesting about gleaning ideas as to what the master plan should look like. We created a master plan, and a set of the design guidelines flowed from that, and these guidelines are now sitting with the planning department, and they make sure that what we're doing on site meets the master plan, which we're very keen to do that. And that's a very basic level of what the master plan that's got planning consent looks like. So again, you can see from that the barriers, if you like, the A9 and the railway. And just in a practical context, we have planning consent up here, and we've focused it almost on a very mini Central Park theme. So there's going to be a public asset at the core here, with very high amenity, soft and hard landscaping. We've spent a lot of time, effort and money indeed on the hard infrastructure. We've built a new bridge here called the Golden Bridge, which was basically to get good connectivity with the local community here and with the business community and Raigmore Hospital here. New access points at the south here in terms of both vehicle and pedestrian and cycle. But we still have a challenge on the railway, and there's some land ownership issues on the east side that we haven't resolved yet. Working hard with our partners to achieve that, but we've got some way to go on that. And then this gives an inkling of what a phase 2 might look like, but that's very much a first stab at it. We don't have a planning application in hand on that at the moment. And then just for your own information, Transport Scotland have got plans, and they announced some of the options last week to create a new road that will link up to the West Link that Drew referred to earlier, and it will run somewhere like that around the south of our site, linking into the A9 here, the A96 which is up here, and eventually round to the West Link, which is way over here. So we will have hopefully another excellent access point to the south of the campus. So connectivity has been quite key to our thinking. The challenges, just put them down in bullet point form, but the challenges have been many, and it's almost, somebody said to me, what's project management in a project like this like? And I said it's almost as if somebody says there's 10,000 problems, go and solve them. And you don't have to do them at once, but you certainly have to do them over a period of time. But one of the interesting problems, and I've learned a lot in the job, is the alignment piece. The alignment of partners at the outset, certainly at the visioning, but also to a lesser degree at the master planning, was excellent. There was enthusiasm. Everybody, if they're not on the same page, at least they're pitching in good ideas, and eventually you come out and you're holding hands and everybody's sweet. As the project progresses from 2007, 8, 9 through to 2014, personalities change, organisations change. I've had at least 2, maybe 3 chief executives. The local authorities had certainly 1 or 2. So the people around the table change, and their ambitions change. So trying to corral the enthusiasm and keep it heading in the right direction has been quite a challenge, and is an ongoing challenge. But I think we're getting better at it. We're getting not too bad at it. Planning has been a challenge, not due to our planning department, I hasten to add, but certainly when you're doing a scheme of this size, which I think in a Scottish context is a large project, but in a Highland context it's massive, and you've got local communities on the doorstep and agitators and whatnot and press and everything, and access has been an issue, traffic's been an issue, so we've worked really hard to communicate what we're trying to do with the local people, the local media, etc., and just explain what the project's about. And it's not a straightforward project, so we recognise that people don't always understand what we're trying to do, and we need to communicate that better. Funding's been a challenge because when we embarked on the project in 2007, the economic crisis hadn't hit us, and when I was going up for my funding approval to my board, which was 25 million, which is not insignificant, it was actually half the annual budget that year, the crisis was upon us, and they're saying, well, is this actually a good time to do this, because our budget's been cut by 20% and there's doom and gloom everywhere. And I have to take my hat off to our board, and I don't always do that, but the High Board was very brave that day. They said, well, we'll be counter-cyclical. When things are getting difficult and the economy's going down, we'll invest so that we're well positioned when it comes up again. And so they committed the 25 million in 2009. Final challenge is the quality. Right at day one, everybody wants the best of stuff. World class is used all the time, don't know what it means, but anyway, it's got to be world class, best of quality, and everybody agrees that. As you reach choppy waters and budgets get tighter and whatnot, you chip away at the quality, or there's a tendency to chip away at the quality. So we've been adamant that we must try and maintain the quality of the activity on site and the fabric on site, and maintain the aspiration. And so far, touch wood, we've been pretty good at doing that, but it's an ongoing issue. In terms of delivery, I'll kind of rush through this a wee bit because there's quite a lot of detail on that site, but in addition to the main infrastructure contract, which the 25 million was approved to address, so the 25 million essentially got us the connection of the green bridge, etc. Incidentally, the challenge to our master planner and designer was, design is a really sexy looking bridge that looks great, but by the way, it's got to be cheap. He got the first bit right, but not necessarily the second bit. The other bits of infrastructure that we're currently working on, CCTV, both communities around said that security and antisocial behaviour was a concern to them, so we've installed, these dots are where we're installing CCTV cameras, 14 of them. So we're wanting to make sure it's a safe site, that we encourage good behaviour amongst the citizens, and that's a two-pronged thing. It's a policing of things, but it's encouraging usage, sensible usage of the site. Site security, we have 24/7 security on site, and again that's probably a wee bit heavy-handed, but the guys are under instruction to take a low-key approach to it. But we know if somebody comes on site at 2 in the morning, we've got it on video, and we can deal with antisocial behaviour as it arises. And then just practical things like maintenance compound, Hall Road is an enabling work to open up these sites. Pre-occupation planning conditions we need to drive through. We've set up an owners association, so that's now a legal entity that will take charge of the common places. High, because it's probably 90% landowner at the moment, owns 90% of the shares of that and the influence. But as new players come on site, plot 1 is the Inverness College site. It's the next biggest agitator, if you like, on the Owners Association, and that will take more and more responsibility as we move through. And then finally, the development strategy, which is more of a workaday document. We took the vision document and turned it into a more practical document, so when people ask what actually are you doing, we can give them the strategy. It's quite a punchy documentation. It's got targets for me, they're very challenging targets, but it's great for focusing the mind in terms of delivery. And here's some images as to what the thing actually looks like. So hopefully you'll see the quality of what we try to do. Very clever design. Can't speak highly enough of 7N. They've done a fantastic job, both in terms of the concept but also the implementation. So the Golden Bridge, I think, does look good. It looks good when you're near it. It looks good when you're driving underneath it. But it's a very pragmatic way of getting over the A9 and connecting with the city centre. These are more kind of aesthetic. This is taken from what we call Inchellan, which is the Island Gallery, and it's a kind of social space with aspirations to have some public art in it as well. And this is some of the walkways that surround the Suds ponds. We've decided to make an aesthetic value out of the drainage solution and have a nice lochen area at the centre with some cycleways and walkways around it. Again, in terms of trying to make great spaces, you can see hopefully the quality of the materials we've used on site. So we've got granite sets here, we've got Caithness stone flags here, we've got nice quality timber finishes, and this is the island feature, which is very modern but quite exciting and certainly unique in its own way, and a lot of investment in soft landscaping, planting, trees, etc. around the site. So we've really worked quite hard to make sure that from day one, even though it's a very immature site, that it looks as if it's going to work quite early for the users. In terms of practical projects on site, the only one I suppose that is over the line is the Inverness College UHI building, and you'll see there that's a capex on its own of 50 million plus, might be a bit more than that. It's the NPD model funded, so it's a quasi PFI if you like. It's been taken forward by Miller, so they're responsible for design, delivery, etc., and in terms of maintenance over 25 years. It will open in August 2015. That's an actual photograph of where it is at the moment. They're making good progress and they're on target for opening that. So that will be the first major project on site. We'll be the single biggest user on site, so very important to us, but also important to us was the fact that it shouldn't be isolated, shouldn't open on its own. So you're working on probably a pipeline of 6 or 7 projects, 3 or 4 of which are about to land over the line. The next one is this one, which is a highly collaborative project with HIE, my own organisation, UHI and Scotland's Rural College, proposing to co-locate in a new building which will encourage these collaborations. Closely aligned, we're very aligned with UHI anyway in terms of our aspirations to grow the region and the region economy and concentrating in key sectors. This will give us an opportunity to really get into them hand in glove. And SRUC, they're starting to come into the picture a bit more as well. This is a big building as well, that's the design of it here. It's just gone through planning, we've just received planning consent. We've got a contractor appointment scheduled for the end of July. We haven't got capital funding approved, but I'm going up to my board in July the 10th to get capital funding for that, probably a capex of about 15 million, and all being well we will complete that in autumn 2015, so that will coincide quite closely with the Inverness College building. Student residences, there's an aspiration to have quite a significant amount of student residences in Inverness. There are none at the moment, no dedicated ones. There's a scheme to the north of our site on plot 7 here, which can cater, between 6 and 7, can cater for 450 student units. First phase is 150 units. UHI responsibility for delivery of that in partnership with the private sector. It's a bit sub judice at the moment, but the deal's nearly over the line. It's just got a wee bit to go yet. But hopefully the aspiration is to have that open again in August 2015. Another one that is funded and consented and will commence on site next month, and it's an advanced unit of about 1,000 square metres, which HIE will own and take forward. And that will commence in July and hopefully complete in June 2015. Will be a shell building, and we'll be using that for inward investment purposes for the life science sector. It's located within an enterprise area for life science, so there are various financial and other incentives to draw biotech companies into the area to build on a cluster of biotech activity in the private sector that we have here in Inverness. And another one which is probably more aspirational is the sport and primary care. We have aspirations to build some sport activity here. Within the Inverness College building there are some limited sports facilities. We want to grow the sports side of things both for the students but also for the local community, and build an academic content around that. Whatever we build here has to be complementary to the sports hub developments planned for the West Link, so we're waiting to see what flows out of that development so that we can be complementary to that. And finally, well, there are other projects such as, I should mention, the training hotel, which is a 117 bedroom 4-star hotel, taken forward as a social enterprise, very unique project with a view to offering skills and training and education opportunities for the more disadvantaged youth in our area. And the Calman Trust, its raison d'etre is to take these people who are currently facing difficulties. They've either come from broken homes, or perhaps got into trouble with the law or whatever. I think NEETS is the category that they have at the moment. But the Calman Trust has got a better than 90% hit rate in terms of taking these people who've had a difficult upbringing and putting them into the world of work, and been very successful in that. So that's a cracking project I should mention. In conclusion, from my own point of view, if I was starting this again, I would start it broadly similarly where I did, although it was almost by accident. But looking back on it, the key thing, which I probably didn't think would be as important, but the key thing was developing a vision that everybody buys into. And even if it's way up there at a high level, the vision is so important to getting everything else in order. The alignment I mentioned earlier on, getting aligned at the beginning is certainly important, but maintaining that alignment over 5, 6, 10 years, which is the lifespan of the development phase. Communication both internally and across the partners, but particularly out to the community through the press, maintaining that. Going round doing your community councils once doesn't work. You have to do it again, and keep on doing it. And certainly the quality, make sure people don't chip away at it, because it's guaranteed they will chip away at it, and it's very important to maintain the quality of what you're trying to do. And finally, I've personally learned it's stickability, because you're going to get knocks along the way, and you're going to have new people coming in with new ideas, but stick with the original vision, and hopefully you'll get there. And I think we've made good progress, but we've got 1,000 years to go, so we'll see how it goes. Very happy to take questions.